So we're going to be talking about Bookshare, and the first thing is some of you might already know what Bookshare is, but some of you might not. And it is an accessible reading program, or like a library of digital text for individuals with disabilities who qualify. And so right now I think they're up to over 700,000 books that are in digital format that can be read aloud, converted to Braille, can be enlarged. You can switch the fonts, you can switch the spacing. So for somebody that has a hard time due to a disability with accessing traditional text or traditional paper-based books, Bookshare is an amazing resource. It is actually funded through Department of Special Education. It is not a DoDEA program. So this can go with a child through any school district in America, and they can even apply and pay I think $50 a year once they graduate high school and continue this on in adulthood. So this really is a tool that can be used across somebody's lifetime. To qualify, somebody has to have dyslexia, blindness, cerebral palsy, or other kind of physical impairment that prevents them from being able to handle a book. And so this is set by old copyright law, because basically the vendors who sell all these books are giving away 700,000 books for free, and so they're very strict on who qualifies. And so it really is somebody with a reading disability, somebody who can't see, or a physical impairment. The questions come up often are autism and ADHD. If it's just those things, they do not qualify for this support. Now, you might have somebody with autism who also has a reading disability. They would qualify. You might have somebody with ADHD who also has a reading disability. They might qualify. You might have a student that fails to qualify for DoDEA special education services, but they have documentation from somewhere that they have dyslexia or some kind of disability. They could be on a 504 plan and still have access to this resource. So for those people that do qualify, it is an amazing title or amazing resource for you. And for your students, I'll switch around here. And who qualifies, if you have any questions again, because I'm kind of talking fast, who does qualify for services, it is on the website. And it really kind of goes through. And you, as a special education teacher, can be a competent authority, and I'm trusting you and honoring your professionalism and your degrees and your experience to really look through the students' records to ensure that they meet the qualification standards. Of course, if you have any questions, I'm happy to be here for you, but you, as the LI teacher, do have the ability to grant a student access into Bookshare. And so here are the different qualification standards. And it does talk about these autism, intellectual disabilities, ADHD, hearing loss. Those do not qualify on their own, just based off of the laws. But it does say that we can get them in if they have another disability category that does qualify. So the first thing is to be able to access Bookshare, you as the teachers have to become sponsors. And so how do you become a sponsor is you would go to contact me at first, and I would add you in as a sponsor. Now, I'm guessing many of you already are sponsors. I know, Peter, you emailed today and were asking about it, and I checked. I was able to go through my sponsor list, and over the years, we've signed lots of people up to be sponsors. So what you would do is you would contact me and say, hey, if I'm brand new to DoDEA, or if you know you're not a sponsor, go ahead and email me, and I'll just need your email address and we'll get you signed up. And you can see here we have all our different sponsors within Europe East. If you're not sure if you were a sponsor or not, go ahead and click on the I forgot my password link within Bookshare. And it is going to say, right now it's saying I'm signed in, but if I wasn't, it would just ask for my password and it would send me a reset my password link. It ask me for my email address, and then it would send me a reset my password link. Be sure to use your eu.dodea.edu email, because that's what we probably signed you up on. Now that we've just switched to the DoDEA one, it wouldn't work. So enter your old email address. It should still get to you, reset your password, and you should be good to go. Now, say you have a teacher at your school that is a Bookshare power user. They've been signed up, they're a sponsor. you can ask them to sign you up. You don't need me. I don't have to be the gatekeeper. So you can also sign up a paraprofessional. You could sign up a general education teacher, a counselor, yourself, but make sure that they read through. You're going to get a big scary email that says you are going to abide by all the copyright laws that that go with using Bookshare. So if they're agreeable and they work for the school and they're not directly related to the student, then go ahead and if you want, you can sign them up. If you have any questions, once again, contact me. So then we get to the next thing. You've been set up as a sponsor. How do we sign up students? So I have some directions here in the notes in case I go too fast. But what you're going to do is you're going to go to Bookshare. And this is kind of what your Bookshare main screen looks like. You have your account or my Bookshare. And this is when you log in as the teacher. This is kind of what it looks like. It says your name, welcome, and you're going to go to members. You're going to left click on that member link, and it is going to give you a listing of all the students in Europe East, or not even Europe East, all the students in Europe who are members of Bookshare. It's going to sort by district, grade, school. It's all going to be there. Now you'll notice we're not using student names. We're using their first initial, the first three of their last initials is their first name, and then the last four of their student ID for their last name. This is to keep PII off of a database. You will see if you go through here that we do have some members that have signed up for individual accounts and their parents have agreed to sign up and they've used their full names for that. And that's okay because the parents have kind of, by signing up, they're agreeing to put their name on this database. It's not us. So go ahead and at first just put their student initials and their last name. You will need to know their birth date. That needs to be correct. And you'll also need to know how they qualified. Are they qualified under an IEP, under a learning disability, a visual impairment, or a physical impairment? You see this big plus sign up here, add member. You select that plus sign, and this is where you put in that information. So for myself, I would do AMAR, and I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd put in my birth date, and then I'd select my grade. This is important. You want to give the student a username and password. For the username, I recommend their first name, their first initials, their Google, everything but the at student.dodia.edu. But just put their first part of their login there. For password, if the student is with me, I try to have them tell me the password they use for everything else. So it's one less password they have to remember. But if they're not here, I typically use something that is easy, the school mascot, favorite food, whatever it is, but I don't make it too complex because it doesn't have to meet. I think it does have to be a total of 6 or 8 characters long, but it doesn't have to be super complex. You are going to want to add this student to your quick list if it's a student you work with often. That's just kind of like a shortcut to quickly get to that student. You're going to choose your district, East District, your school. This is when you select how they qualified and if they're on an IEP. For reading preferences, if you're using a lot of read and write for Google, I recommend switching this to EPUB. And that's just that's the best file format that works well within read and write for Google. So you set all that up, you hit save, and the child is now in. Okay, so I'm going to hit save now, and it's going to flag because I haven't put in all the required information. So that's helpful if you have forgotten something. All right, so now you have a student that's in, and when they log in, they would log in using that information that you just set up for them, and they are going to be able to access any books that you've set for them. So we're going to go back here to my agenda. So now we're looking at how do we find books. So the child now is logged in, but the way Bookshare works is under an organizational account, they have no access to any of the books unless you have approved it or a sponsor somewhere has approved that book for them. Now we're going to talk a little bit at the end. If they can get an individual account, that opens up the whole library and removes you as the middleman. The benefit to that is that they have access to 700,000 books. The downside is they have access to 700,000 books. You always need to make sure that your fourth grade parents are aware that that child could be checking out 50 Shades of Grey. So it's a terrific thing, but it just needs to be managed a little bit. We want to make sure the parents are on board with us. So I often will say, can we sign up your child for an individual account at the IEP meeting, at an open house, but somewhere where I'm actually having a conversation with that family so they know what to expect. So if I wanted to add an individual membership, say to this JAHR, I would put a check mark by the student's name, and I would scroll all the way down to the bottom, and it says more actions, and I would add individual membership. And so again, this shifts from me being the middleman having to approve everything to the parents now kind of being in the process, and the child has open access to the full library. You'll need the parent's email address. Type that in. It'll shoot them an email, and then they'll finish the account setup on their own. So it's something that, again, if you haven't talked to the parents about, they're going to delete this email as spam. So if you do any kind of back to school reading nights or open houses, STEM nights, library nights, reading events, I always kind of advocate for our special ed folks maybe having a booth or a table set up where they kind of go through some of these things and talk about these options. I'm also, if I'm in the area, I'm happy to support that as well and be there for that too. So we've talked about the individual, the organization, but we still haven't talked about how you find books. So say you were looking for a book, we're going to look for Magic Tree House. Type in the name of the book. Then it brings all the different Magic Tree Houses. And I can choose to assign this book to a student. Now you'll see, we have all the students for all of Europe in there. You're going to want to probably sort that out by, remember, if you added them to your quick list, then it would just bring up your kids. Or you could just do, you could go by grade, or you can search members here. So this is where you need to know their first initial, their last three. So this is one way you could add by selecting that child, and I can even select multiple children. So if I have a class and I want them all to read Magic Tree House, I could select them all, and then if I go down to the bottom, it's going to say to add their reading list, assign. So scroll, assign. I'm going to scroll out of that now. Now I have another option. I know many of you are familiar with Google Drive. This kind of works the same way, where I can create a reading list. So what I would do is I'd go to my Bookshare, and I'm going to go to my reading lists here. And this works the same way like a Google shared folder, where it takes a little bit of setup at first, but I can set up one reading list. I'm going to hit the plus button here, and I'm going to say, fun reading titles for my students. And I can go to my member as who is assigned. So that means I'm going to assign somebody to that. And I can click on add members. And so I can go through that list and I can assign as many students as I want to that reading list. And so I can put all my kids in there. And the nice thing is once I do that, when I put a book in this reading list, they now all have access. So I'm going to go back to that Magic Tree House. And if I had created that reading list and put all my kids in there that I work with, I can click on Add to Reading List, and it's going to prompt me to say, oh, what reading list do you want to put it in? So if I put it in that fun reading titles for middle school, or for reading, they now all have access to it. So you set up your reading list. You can have it for fun, for fiction, nonfiction, different grades. It's however you decide. I typically kept it pretty broad when I used it so that I didn't have to do a lot of micromanaging. And so now all those students have access to that title. If you're not sure about what to look for, we have the browse option within Bookshare, which is one of my favorite features because they've gone through and have made popular collections. And so I wanted to show you like all the kid collections that have already been made for us, because a lot of times we have kids that really struggle with their motivation for reading. And so with this, I can go to, there's one, let's see here, we have Battle of the Books. I forgot the name. What's the name of that? Oh, Fortnite. There we go. There was a Fortnite. If I do Control F, calling all Fortniters. There we go. Control F allows me to search within that document. So here are books that are just aligned with Fortnite. So for our kids that really struggle with motivation to read, you know, could be an option. And if I click on this, add to reading list, I've just now easily assigned it to those kids that I've set to those kids that I set up within that reading list. And when they log into their account, these books are going to show up. So we have talked about how to become a sponsor, how to sign up a student, make sure you use the naming convention. We've talked about how you can find and assign books for students. If you're looking for any kind of textbook, make sure you have the volume and the version and all the details, because some textbooks have 80 different versions for each different state and each different district. So you want to make sure you're using the one that aligns with the curriculum. But I personally like it a lot for the nonfiction or the fiction text, the fun stuff that the kids typically don't have easy access to. Okay, so we've talked about individual memberships, the difference between organization, you're the gatekeeper, individual, there is no gatekeeper, involve the parents. We've talked about how that they can log in, and in one of our future webinars, we're going to go more into the tools. What does it look like for the student when they use it in Chrome, read and write, if they have a personal tablet? That's going to be kind of our follow-up training. Today was more just getting you as teachers signed up as sponsors, you signing up your students, and you starting to make reading lists for your kids that are either high interest or have curricular value to them. And so for the last couple minutes, I'm going to open up the chat box, and if you would like to unmute your mic, if you have any questions that might have come up.
Aaron?
Yes.
Janet? Are there any particular collections that are those high-low books?
Yes, they do have some high-low, some high interest but easy vocabulary. Yes, they do. So I'm going to go into special collections again and browse. Yeah, I really encourage you all to look through this browse list that they have, because it really is a high interest young adult novels. So they do have some, and I think if I was to browse through some more, they do have some of the high content but easier vocabulary. So take a little bit of time and browse and continue to browse through the different collections, but I know there is some stuff there. Any other questions? Do you feel comfortable in either making sure you're set up as a sponsor, signing up your students, and then being able to at least start making some reading lists for them? Okay, high interest books for young readers. All right, I think that was the one I was thinking of, the high interest books for young readers. So it says it's ideal for elementary and middle. We might have to do a little bit more looking. What I would recommend is go ahead and look on Amazon or some of your other any places that you like to look for books, and see if they have any books that jump out at you, and then search Bookshare, because chances are they probably are already on Bookshare. I often like to use Amazon with the kids to go through like the top 100 best-selling books, or we look at the book trailers that people make, make these YouTube videos, kind of like getting them motivated to read the books, and then we'll download them off of Bookshare. All right, well, true to my word, I'm going to cap this at 3 o'clock. We've been here for 20 minutes. Hopefully this was a helpful, focused session for you. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat box or comment to me or send me an email. And I will be posting this video for everyone who could not attend. Hope this format works for you, and let me know if you have any ideas on how to make it better. Thanks for your time.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. This was great.
Good.